All right, this is a test more than anything else because I haven't used this setup in a while. I'm in a new location. You know, feeling free. Finished my dissertation. That's me got my master's in psychology, a honours degree in sociology, a postgraduate certificate in alcohol and drug studies, a postgraduate diploma in education. Worked 10 years in care. Worked a couple of years as a school teacher, and I still make minimum wage. Still make minimum wage, but you know what? I'm not in it. Not in it for the money. No, I'm in it for the love, right? I'm in it for the love, right? So today, what I want to pick up on. Oh, hello there, hello there. This is it. This is it. Is it a big? Is my big comeback? Is my big comeback? I don't know if it is. I'm a bit patchy these days, but you know what? I've got a lot of free time now. Got a lot of free time now, so we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. There we go. I got some peeps. David, William, I've been helped to see you again. Keep you in my prayers. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Aye, there you go. Thank you. Got a wee haircut recently as well. I've put on a few pounds, right? I'm not going to lie. I've put on a few pounds. I think I'm sitting at £210 right now. I usually sit at I don't know, 180. 180 would be good. We'll get there. It's the festive season. Anyways, who's heard of Sam Frost, right? Who has heard of Sam Frost? Sam Frost used to be a full preterist and is no longer. And he often locks horns on Facebook with our man Don K. Preston. And, I got to thinking as I was reading through it, not that I've ever seen any full preterists getting a bit sassy other than Don K, but he's fully engaged in that debate scene, isn't he? But I've never seen anyone act in a way that I would call mean-spirited or tit for tat, really. But, Sam said that I read the comments, hundreds of them, and if I were to chart the responses, those opposing what I blurt out fall into one category: full preterists. The rest, Eastern Orthodox, some Catholics, many forms of Protestants, some having college experience, many not, do not oppose what I write on these matters. Wonder why that is. Now, this single group of many stripes, Israel only, consistent preterists, impartial preterists, covenant eschatology prets, CBV prets, EV prets, flat earth prets, reformed prets, the list is growing, are all complaining that I am obsessed or judgmental, that I am a hyper-creedalist or making non-gospel issues into major issues and the like. Some full prets come out and say, I have turned my back on God since I left the movement, or that I am a traitor, a truth denier, and the like. The great majority of the posts support my conclusions, whether they are premillennialists, post-millennialists, or amillennialists. Some of my friends are ardently opposed to Calvinism and the like. All of this support, and yet one group, just one, opposes me. What should I make of such an observation? And I've been doing this for a good many years now. I think the point he's trying to get at is he feels unduly opposed by full preterists. And I don't buy that. I think that's a disingenuous statement because Sam is someone who does antagonize the full preterist sect. He does come out with statements. He does, if not outright saying it, imply that this is a heretical wrong think in the Christian church. Indeed, he would go so far as to say his fellowship with a full preterist is rocky ground, and he certainly celebrates his Christianity with those, is it Durin? Those bearded guys who have a podcast that I once responded to. He once commented, shared a platform with them, I think, not too long ago. Or was it they met up at that challenging the belief in hell conference, which I'm in for. But when it comes to preterism, he seems to have come to this firm conclusion that forecloses understanding. And I think the spirit in which he deals with the matter, he very much reaps what he sows, because it becomes this political divide, doesn't it? And then I've noticed in some of his posts that he creates these models, right? And we all do this. We're all guilty of doing this from time to time. Maybe in our past, maybe we still do it. Where we'll create a straw man argument, right? We'll create a model and then we'll put our opponents in it, and it doesn't work out. It's like handing a pianist a shoe and telling them, "Oh, I want to listen to canon in D minor. I want to hear that music. If you wouldn't mind." And you're like, "Well, you've given me a shoe, so I can't play that music for you." And they're like, "Oh, so you can't play canon in D minor on a shoe?" Like, no, I never said I could. And that's what I've noticed about these arguments coming from Sam Frost. It's like, "Oh, so you just deny the second coming of Christ? You just deny it?" It's like, that's not where we're at. That's not what we believe. Or maybe Sam Frost would be a bit more sophisticated, but certainly some of the followers will just say things. "Oh, so you don't believe that Christ fulfilled his promises?" Basically, is what it boils down to. And we would say, well, we do believe that Christ fulfilled the promises that God made. We do believe that, but this is how we believe it was, this is how we believe it unfolded in a slightly different way than you. Well, not slightly, it's a significant, right? I'll grant that's a significantly different way, but ultimately it's the same spiritual significance that we're all kind of pointing toward. But I hadn't read that statement about how he felt he was vehemently opposed by one particular group. I hadn't read that. I'd only seen his comment made a few hours ago. We'll get to that one. His next post, by the way, was, "Can two walk together except they be agreed?" He just posted that without comment. Now, again, if you just post that without comment, is that not slightly antagonistic? I mean, what are we to infer by posting this Amos 3:3 verse? Now, someone got into it and said it's actually, "Can two walk together except they agree to meet?" Right? But even that has the same sort of meaning, doesn't it? If you can't come together, if you don't agree to meet, let's say in the middle, can you walk together? And I actually think that's a beautiful point. I think that's a good way of looking at it. But when just presented, "Can two walk together except they be agreed?" oftentimes it comes across as, that whole pointing a finger. As one person says, this is often Christianese for, "I don't want you stirring things up and making things hard for me anymore." And I think that's how that's often used, a sort of hectoring, henpecking sort of thing, isn't it? Get back in line, or else we will not be able to walk shoulder to shoulder anymore. So I hadn't read that. What I had read was the first little 18 hours ago post they made there. He's quoting Michael Beller, Bieheler. I don't know. He's quoting Michael from 2015. "If he did not return in 70 AD, then the Bible is nonsense." And this is from a book called Bamboozled Believers. If he did not return, then the Bible is nonsense, right? And I actually took what I think is the best approach to something like that. As a full preterist, given the sort of arena of debate, you might want to put all your money on the table at that point and say, "Yes, I'm all in. It's nonsense if you don't believe as I believe. Bullshit," right? And you're part of that. But I didn't do that. What was my wee comment? My wee comment was this: that's a bit too dogmatic. It's a bit too dogmatic. Like if Jesus doesn't arrive in 70 AD, the Bible is nonsense. I would certainly say that the narrative doesn't make sense, but to say the Bible is nonsense if you don't come to the same conclusion as me, I know as a piece of rhetoric, that's not very persuasive. That's getting the home team to cheer, but it ain't getting anybody else on side. It's putting their hackles up. I say, as a full preterist, I don't believe the value of a human being is bound up in a theology test. And this isn't just me speaking. I'm picking these things up from people throughout listening to YouTube videos, throughout interacting in all these groups. So this isn't my wisdom, but I was happy with what I said. You know what I mean? Not in a prideful way, but I was just kind of happy. I thought that seems right to me because I feel it myself, getting all wound up in the spirit of debate. And I think there's a place for it. But I decided it wasn't now. And I said, I don't think the value of a human being is in a theology test. If God judged us on our seminary school credits, then there's very few saints. As Christians, we can have every point of doctrine wrong so long as we are humble and love one another. Because who's more righteous in God's eyes? The atheist who shares their lot with their neighbour, or the self-righteous Christian who stacks their treasures on earth? What we believe isn't necessarily what we say or what we think. It's what we do, right? The Bible wouldn't be nonsense if full preterism was wrong. Neither would I be damned, okay? My faith isn't contingent on full preterism necessarily. Although when you see it all threaded together, it's hard to displace that part. That part just makes it more seamless to me. But ultimately, it's the example of Christ and his message, which I think makes a lot more sense. I think it's in higher definition when you perceive it through the full preterist lens. But I'm not going to call you a heretic, right? If I'm ruling if I'm the Pope of Christianity, I'm not saying everybody become a full preterist or you're a heretic. I actually like the idea of people having a spirited debate because, my goodness, we are talking about things that are necessarily unclear. We're all talking about concepts that we don't quite get. We don't know the fullness of them. Like in their isolated little eschatology, from our anthropomorphic or anthrocentric perspective, we can get a story out of it. But what the heck does that mean metaphysically? What is going on? We can't even fathom. We can't even fathom. We don't have that down. So I think a little grace ought to be extended between all people who would want to consider themselves disciples of Jesus. On this channel that I give a lot of weight to the near-death experience. If people are commenting, I will read them. My eyes are just on this Facebook page just now. But I listen to a lot of the near-death experiences. And in every instance, even when people have, in fact, when two people, I was listening to, there's two people I can think of now. Howard Storm is one of them, but there was a guy today I listened to, and he had an experience with Christ, if you believe them. And they both asked, what's the right religion? What's the good religion? And we're both told, it's the one that leads you closest to God, and that there is no religion on the other side of things, right? It's not like, it was the LDS church. That was the right way. What a silly, silly way to think. And I know that we don't think that, but many people are stuck in the political mindset, And that's why I made this video. It's to get us to aim better. Because ultimately that's what sin means, isn't it? It's to miss the mark. It's an archery term, or at least that's what I was told. Oftentimes you find these things are not true years later. It wasn't. It was never an archery term, but I heard it was, and I'm sticking to that for this video. And I think we need to recognise that the aim ought not to be correctness in doctrine or correct theological interpretation. That ought not to be the aim. It can be a aim, but I don't think it should be the aim. And if other people are off in that regard, then they themselves are off. We make a dispositional judgment against them, right? There is something wrong with them, intrinsically wrong with them, because they have come to a different conclusion that you deem to be incorrect. So they, as human beings, are just an embodiment and a manifestation of wrongness through and through. To me, that is not to be perfect, as our Heavenly Father is perfect. And that is not how he regards humanity. And that is not how we should regard other human beings in any arena. Yeah, I'll say that. So the aim shouldn't be to be totally correct, okay? The judgment is not the great theology test, right? That's not what we're doing. It's a very cartoonish way to perceive how God is or would judge us. We need to ask ourselves, what are we trying to achieve on this earth, right? Are we trying to outdo each other, or do we want to help each other understand? Because people have said it, like you've got these pictures in the Bible, and some people want to live in the past, but we cannot live there. You have the law of Moses, right? Which is a bolt-on, an improvement, as my Facebook friend Jacob Wright would say. It brings you out of the law of the jungle. So the law of Moses isn't this is it, guys, we've got it, this is the best. No, you've got the law of the jungle, you've got the law of Moses, which is still a bit brutal. You've got you've got the first century, a lot more sophisticated than what was going on hundreds of years prior, but still not as sophisticated as it can be today. Today, we have insights that no one person could ever have in a lifetime. We have access to information on a scale that has never been achieved before. You would have to be the wealthiest person in the world to have access to even a fraction of the information that we have access to today. It doesn't cost us that much. So there's a responsibility there, and it shouldn't be to try and outperform each other in what I would consider to be a mean-spirited way. And again, I haven't seen, there will be in every population the extremists, right? I haven't really seen the preterists who are the extremists, right? I've not seen them. I guess if you speak out against full preterism, as Sam Frost has, he might be exposed to that on a level that I'm not. So I'm not going to say that his experience has no legitimacy. He might have had a few nasty run-ins, and that's been uncomfortable and unkind, and it's flavored that whole dynamic a bit for him. But therein lies the other great tenet of our faith, which is forgiveness, and not imbuing upon a whole people group, not tarring with the same brush, right? If you have a negative experience with one person, you can't just write off everyone, okay? Otherwise, there would be no grace, right? Adam sinned, boom, that's it. That's it. There's no redemption here. But of course, there is for everyone, if they so seek it. And I would hold out hope for people. But living in the past, church sort of self and used violence to hold firm certain truths, right? And the great tragedy of William Tyndale resonates out through the ages. My God, what an awful, awful fate that man met. And for what? Translating the Bible, putting it in the hands of the people, letting us think. Aye, what a crime. What a crime. And that's all to do with power dynamics again, isn't it? And being right and wrong and stepping out of line, and if you do, but we'll kill you. That's a terrible spirit to have. And I'm not saying that's what's going on here. I'm not saying that Sam Frost is a murderer. That's the point of this video. I'm not saying that at all. He may be a lovely gentleman for all I know. I don't know him. But I can see what's going on in the Facebook page there. I'm seeing some of the things that he's saying. I'm thinking, man, you ain't so innocent. You ain't the things that you're people of. I can see you're doing them too. You're not this lovely grandfather full preterism, who's got this wonderful, exudes this beautiful, inclusive spirit and rallies people around himself to just, he's not the kind of person you would say, well, we don't agree, but he's such a lovely man. He's so sweet. He's such a sweet man. Yeah, that's not what you get from Sam Frost, right? He knows what he's doing. He's locking horns. He's bringing a bit of fire, and so be it. I'm not saying like change your character, Sam Frost. Be ever so incredibly saintly in all your ways. No, be Sam Frost. I'm just saying you're wrong. No, I'm not, but I am. I am saying that, but I'm not telling you that you have some kind of dispositional flaw. I'm not saying, oh, there's one people group who seems to oppose me. I wonder what that means. Like, what do you think it means, Sam? What do you think it means? I mean, what have you done to facilitate a nice dialogue, a constructive, charitable dialogue? What have you done to achieve that? And then ask yourself, what have you done to spoil that? What have you done to conjure rage and incite mean-spiritedness? What have you done in that regard? Now, sometimes you can be the nicest person in the world and you still get a bit of flack. That's completely true. But you gotta give yourself a bit of scrutiny. Now I'm going to move into some scriptures, but let me just see what's going on in the wee chat here. We got a Dan. Greetings and salutations. Oh yeah, we've got the frosty man in the chat. It's Ken Barber. Thank you. Aye. Sign of the Apocalypse. John 14:19, where it says, "You'll never see me again, see me no more." You can expand on that someday. Oh yeah, John 14:19, absolutely. I think John 14:19. I think that really works. 14:19. Let me bring it up in my faves, the New King James Version. A little while longer, and the world will see me no more, but you will see me, because I live. You will live also. Yes. How about that verse? That works for me. I want to maintain this nice spirit I'm talking about. Well, I think from the full preterist perspective, we would say yes. The kingdom does not come with observation, so that you should say, there it is, or here it is here. We are talking about spiritual matters that overwhelm the human intellect, can't grasp it completely. And so Christ spoke in metaphor and analogy quite a lot, because that's what he had to work with. It's like, it's like trying to process information that you don't have the mechanisms to process. It's like lifting up the phone and hearing the dial tone for the internet, right? You're not picking up that signal. It's really hard. You need something to register that through. And so you put it into a computer and you can bring up certain information, right? It's like it needs to be filtered in a certain way, and metaphor works well. But this just ties in so neatly to the ideas that we've been presented through Christ. I mean, as I said in a post to someone, I think in this same thread, I think they'd said something about just how incredulous they were that people would be full preterists, and I was like, yeah, I'm not having any of that. I didn't say it quite like that. Where did it go? No, I don't know, but I know I made reference and I saved some of the quotes. Yeah, it's not there, is it? All right. But yeah, the kingdom of heaven doesn't come with observation. Jesus Christ says, "You will not see me again." Very interesting language, isn't it? Because when you think of first where he speaks about how we know not yet what we shall be, but we know we will be like him. I think that's very interesting language. There's and Paul saying, we look not to things seen, but to the invisible things which are imperishable and incorruptible. There's something about that invisible realm, that invisible space, something that's not quite perceptible to us, and yet we have an idea of it because it was communicated enough through Christ and through our consciences, our understanding, which I think continues to grow. And again, that's why I talk about near-death experience. I think that's a beautiful medium for communicating ideas. There's a Reddit page, r/NDE, and there's a woman on there, Sandy T, and she's got a beautiful way with words, the way she describes things, these amazing concepts, and she communicates them so well. Highly recommend a wee chit chat with her. I think you got to be careful sometimes with the NDEers. You're like, oh, that was a really wonderful, insightful experience. I want to learn more about them. And then the more you learn about them, you're kind of like, whoa, they're pretty strange. That was too much. That was too much. But some of them are on the level, highly gettable characters. But just even here, like, because 1 Thessalonians 4:13-18 always comes up as a big stumbling block for people who call us preterists, heretics. Even just starting at 15 here. For this we say to you by the word of the Lord, that we who are alive and remain until the coming of the Lord will by no means precede those who are. Again, my first point there would be, who's this written to? Who's it written to and who's it speaking to? For this we say to you by the word of the Lord, that we who are alive and remain until the coming of the Lord will by no means precede those who are asleep. For the Lord will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of an archangel, and with the trumpet of God. Now, people just take for granted these things. Oh, you've got to read it literally. I mean, the trumpet of God, are you taking that literally? And the dead in Christ will rise first. Then we who are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and thus we shall always be with the Lord. Are you taking that literally? Remember, this is talking about what? The coming of Christ. So he's coming down, right, to the earth, and we're meeting him in the air, and thus we will always be with the Lord. What, just stuck in the air? I mean, how literally are you going to take this? I know it's a bit, unsophisticated, but often we are dished out that unsophisticated interpretation. So you serve it back in that tennis court of just nonsense, and you find it's like, yeah, we got to be more charitable. Let's be more charitable. What are we actually saying? What do we actually believe? And sometimes, it's not helpful to classes as a whole, right? I find that full preterists are piecing things together in a very independent, very free-thinking way. And many of us will have very different subjectively held beliefs as we try and piece this story together. And many of you listening to this have helped me piece it together with more kind of sturdy blocks than I had a couple of years ago, which I'm very thankful for. So yeah, I just wanted to read that out because it's a difficult, chewy piece, and people often refer to that. I think about this idea of rapture. It's like, well, where do you think they're going? If it's Christ's return, where do you think you're just hanging out there? It's the parousia, and it's making a reference to the the kind of regal entrance of a dignitary into a town, right? That's what is being referred to there. And then obviously one of my favorite verses is, for these are the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled, right? A classic. Right? It's the classic full preterist verse, and it just ties in so beautifully to so many other things, Hebrews, what is it? Hebrews 10:37, for yet a little while, or in the Young's literal translation, for yet any, was it? For yet in a very, very little, yeah, the imminency, ye shall come and shall not tarry. It's like, what do you think the Hebrews writer is considering there? Some protracted, drawn out, extended time that spans longer than from Moses to John the. That's a very, very little with no tarrying. That's patently absurd to me. Right? That's how it sounds to me. It doesn't sound realistic to me, but it does to other people. But one of the big ones for me is I was watching back some of my material to think about what was it I was saying that so resonated with me that I wanted to communicate. It's things like this in Luke 21:8. Take heed that you do not be deceived, for many will come in my name, saying, I am he, and the time has drawn near. Therefore, do not go after them. Right? So these are people that Christ is saying not to go after, the folks that say the time's drawn near. Said it's the last hour. Peter said the end of all things draw near. Paul said, that God will crush Satan under your feet shortly. Things like this. And Jesus even said in Revelation, he's coming quickly in the 1st and in the 22nd chapter of that vision. So what? Do we just write them all off? I mean, that's what consistency would dictate to me. Anyways, the Jesus now is the Lord of lies, the morning star named Jesus now. Okay, why are you doing this to me, Chad? Right? What are you doing to me? Right? This is a wee light-hearted comeback video, and you're in here with that. Get to right. You can't come in here. I'll let you out. Jesus now isn't the door. God will say, "I know you're Jesus." He has a new name you don't know. Yeah, I can see what you're saying there. I can see what you're saying there, chat. But you're coming in a bit hard. You're coming in a bit strong. Coming in a wee bit strong there. You're talking about things being fulfilled, perhaps an allusion to 1 Corinthians 15. Is it 28? Is it 28? Where all things are under him except God, and then the kingdom will be passed back to God, so that we can all be one with God and have that immediate relationship with the Father, right? Heirs of God and co-heirs with Christ. I think that's what you're saying. And you notice, see my interaction there. I'm not saying, "Oh, Chad, you're a pure heretic." I'm saying, right, okay, I can see what you're saying. It's quite strong language, but I'm not going to get offended by that. My God, what am I going to do? If I was you, I'd be thinking the exact same way you're thinking. But by the grace of God, I'm over here in this experience with the right idea. No, anyway, I've said enough, guys. Thank you for the really lovely, warm welcome back. I didn't put too much thought into this. I just thought we should all be, cool preterists, right? Full and cool preterists. Right? What a wonderfully insightful video that is. So thank you very much. God bless you all. I'm looking forward to making some more streams in the future. All the best. Take care.